Now, MPs are set to debate Tony Blair's knighthood as more than 465,000 signatures have been put on that petition calling for him to be stripped of the honour. Now, the former Labour Prime Minister, the first and only person to date to lead the party to 3 consecutive general election victories, was named in the Queen's New Year's honours list. But critics argue the legacy of his invasion of Iraq in 2003 makes him unsuitable, and that the decision is a kick in the teeth to the people of Afghanistan and Iraq. So does Tony Blair deserve a knighthood? Let's have a chat with my panel. I'm going to start actually with you, James.
Yeah, I mean, I think he does. If other prime ministers, former prime ministers, receive them, then I think Tony Blair does absolutely as well. I think all former prime ministers should receive them.
What?
Otherwise, it becomes political.
Well, why should you get one just because everyone else has? They haven't actually.
Otherwise, if say John Major and Margaret Thatcher received them and then Tony Blair didn't, it looks overtly political, and that would undermine the very system in the first place.
But not every prime minister actually has been given a knighthood.
Some of Harold Macmillan, I think, rejected one. But I mean, Tony Blair. What is the objection? Is it because he took the country to war? I mean, Margaret Thatcher took the country to war. John Major maintained an arms embargo in the former Yugoslavia, which indirectly led to genocide. So why is Blair the exception? I don't think.
Why is he the exception? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he took the country to war.
Dodgy dossier.
With a duplicit aim. I think he believed that was the right decision at the time.
Well, I don't know if you read that.
It wasn't so obvious at the time that it was the wrong decision because there was public support for it, just 52% support. I think it was.
No, there was huge protests actually against.
Yeah, there were, but the public opinion was divided. Public opinion was divided at the time, and a lot of people who were more sympathetic to the case at the time have since said, they were always against it because it's become very fashionable to say that.
No, I can tell you I was there, and at the time...
I know, it was huge, but it was a million people, but the country's 70 million people, so...
Well, that's a huge... When was the last time you saw, apart from the poll tax, when was the last time you saw 1 million people come out...
Probably the poll tax, but again, it's not necessarily representative of public opinion. A big protest isn't necessarily where the public is. There were big protests against Brexit, but the majority supported Brexit.
The other side of it is obviously that the weapons of mass destruction were not there. So now we've discovered it. Yes, hindsight is a great thing, and we can take your point, but we know it now. And at the time, it became pretty obvious that there really wasn't anything going on, and yet he did that, and hundreds of thousands of people died. And this is sometimes you do something.
But the war would have happened anyway if Blair hadn't gone with the Americans, because Bush was determined to invade.
That's not quite the story. But anyway, let's come to you, Martin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the people who completely understands why people are angry about this. The difference between Blair's war and other wars is Blair's war was illegal. Yeah. And that's the first key point. The evidence was never there. He greatly diminished our standing on the international stage by being a poodle to America. But beyond that, and I say this as somebody who voted for Tony Blair, I'm from Nottinghamshire, Dad's a coal miner, Dad's watching, Dad, love you. And it's like, we went with Blair because we thought, right, this is a new beginning, it was all things to only get better. And instead, we saw the beginnings of Brexit. Blair, the arch globalist who just opened our borders to immigration, particularly when the A8 came. And you can snigger all you like. It absolutely ripped the heart out of working-class Britain. Blair was warned many, many times about wage suppression, about housing shortages. All this happened on his watch, and he turned a blind eye because he was tied into the globalist dream of open borders. Big business loved it because they got endless cheap labour. Plasterers, builders, truck drivers saw their lives decimated. Blair set the key, the cornerstone for Brexit, which he tried to resist with all of his political might. So we have to ask the question, why is he getting this honour now? And I think it's quite obvious. He's been one of the biggest cheerleaders of Big Pharma, of COVID passports, of all of this kind of messaging from the government. Blair has had his fingerprints all over it. He's been saying for years we should have digital ID. He is basically towing the government line. He's the turd that cannot be flushed. He's one of those people that...
You have to excuse that language.
The public...
I'm just going to have to make it...
That's fine. I'm allowed to call Tony Blair worse than that.
No, I would not on GBNews. You can call him something like that in your own time. Not on GBNews. We'll apologise if that offended you. Let's go to Scarlett and see what she has to say.
Yeah. People offended by that.
Look, I think we're sort of all over the place. To begin with Tony Blair and the Iraq War, because that's the reason is being given. I opposed the Iraq War at the time. I went on television and I opposed it. But, the point is that Parliament voted for it, right? And that America went into it wrongly, in my view, but it wasn't Tony Blair who found the evidence. You had Colin Powell, a man of incredible respect.
There wasn't any evidence.
a man of incredible respect who went to the UN to talk about it. So, yes, it was the wrong thing to do. But I think that a lot of people, frankly, as Martin, you've proved, are using the war to grind a lot of axes. And frankly, if we're talking about wrecking the country, Mrs. Thatcher destroyed the industrial base of this country, which is why we import so much, and yet she was given it. I don't think it is a conspiracy. The Queen...
Wasn't she the first female Prime Minister in this country?
She was the first.
So I would say that really that's a huge thing. She's the first.
Yes, but
I would say that, and also she did do some amazing things, actually, and she didn't bring us into an illegal war. A lot of people would say that the war that Tony Blair brought people into was an illegal war, and even then he's never said sorry for the actual he's never said, if he'd actually been slightly repentant. He was even talking about giving advice on as to how we should deal with Afghanistan. It beggars belief that he thought that he should be the right person to do that.
Look,
so he showed no remorse for what he's done.
He's wrong, right? He was wrong about Iraq.
Yeah, but he's not even said sorry.
But he hasn't said sorry because he doesn't think he was wrong. But what I'm saying... there's no point in him saying sorry.
But we know he was wrong.
Genuine...
But we know he was wrong. Like if somebody says to you, that is wrong because you were wrong about the weapons, you're wrong about this, the move that you made was completely wrong, and we now know that. You would think that person might actually show some sort of, I apologise, I should not have done this. He's not shown anything like that.
No, because he feels that getting rid of Saddam Hussein was the main thing. Now, I think he was wrong, but I actually think if we're talking about an honour, right, that it is not being done because he's sort of some poodle of this government, is that the honour was in the lap of the Queen, and actually the Daily Telegraph said that the reason he didn't get the honour immediately, which is what one would have expected, is because the Queen was very annoyed about what he did over Princess Diana's funeral, and that has forced her to do it. I think James is absolutely right, you just should do it, and it shouldn't be political, and that's what's really important.
So what is it based on then? Because if you should just
it's based on,
then it basically means
you've
that
run the country.
Yes, but service to the country, but in what capacity?
So, why has John Major received one?
Yeah.
He was a terrible Prime Minister.
What did he do?
Yeah, but he didn't start. Did he start a war?
No, but what did he do that was right?
But the thing is, though, I'm looking at...
Nana, what did John Major do that was right?
Listen, there's too many things. I really don't have a list of the things that John Major did that were right or wrong. All I can remember is that...
John Major did preside over a foreign policy disaster in the former Yugoslavia. Douglas Hurd, his defence secretary, and Malcolm Rifkin, they kept an arms embargo in place, which led to the Srebrenica massacre, and there was a siege of Sarajevo, and thousands of people were killed.
But that was in the basis of illegal warfare, the theatre of war.
It's
completely different. It's apples and pears.
They kept an arms embargo in place because they didn't want Bosnians to have arms to fight back against the Serbs. And Tony Blair took, whether it's legal or not, it was the Iraq war was illegal because Russia vetoed it at the UN. I don't think we should decide what's legal and illegal on that basis.
Well, the findings of the Chilcot inquiry was that it was illegal. Yeah. So it's not a case for us to decide on
why, though. Why did they find it illegal?
Because the evidence wasn't there. It was fabricated.
But the intelligence services were presenting the government with evidence that Saddam had WMD at the time. It wasn't Blair made that up. That evidence was it was wrong, but the government was receiving that evidence at the time.
But wasn't the letter on the outside of this Chilcot inquiry completely different to what was in it? And the problem here is that people went with what the letter said. So my problem here is that there seems to be almost some deception, and I'm not comfortable with that. And on the other side of things, this war, where hundreds of thousands of people died, was actually, it transpires that the thing that they went for didn't exist. And then on top of that, the person who instigated it doesn't even acknowledge that what he did was a mistake. Yeah. So he's not apologised. So if you don't apologise, and listen, there's a few things. It shows the kind of character you are, and actually, I don't think that you deserve a knighthood. And actually, the public should have some sort of say as to who they want to glorify. And I want to just kind of equate this to those slave traders and those statues. I'm not saying that Tony Blair is a slave trader, but I think that if you look at it, slave trading was illegal at the time. Everyone went along with it, but there must have been some objection at the time. We are now ripping down those statues, saying that these people shouldn't be honoured. So now we are going with this. Why are we honouring people who may have done something bad or good, but then they're trying to do philanthropic things in the way to try and mask what they're doing?
Saddam Hussein was a slave trader.
Yes, but I'm just saying it. Well,
he did trade in people. Well,